They'd assumed that because Mandelson was a peer, it would be the Lord Speaker that provided this information. They got confused and named another guy. So the Lord Speaker, Lord Forsyth, is absolutely furious as well, and the Met Police are going to see him today to apologise. And look, I put it to you, to infuriate one speaker is unfortunate, but to infuriate two speakers is quite something else. And it's not a particularly good start to this investigation, I would have thought, and it's worth kind of looking at that more broadly, because obviously this is really sensitive, this case, and it's going to continue to be sensitive for a long time. And Mandelson is clearly very aggrieved as well.
It's time to get some politics. The police have had to apologise to the House of Commons Speaker Lindsay Hoyle after they revealed to Peter Mandelson that it was Hoyle himself who warned them that the former ambassador may leave the country. Steve Swinford, the Times political editor, joins us now. Good morning.
Good morning.
I mean, it's a bit of a mess, this, isn't it? Lindsay Hoyle clearly felt yesterday he had to address the rumours about who had informed the police on Peter Mandelson, but it's just got a bit more confusing since then.
It's completely high farce. So we learned yesterday morning that Lindsay Hoyle was the source of the claims. We went to Lindsay, and then he shortly after that put out a statement in the Commons confirming indeed that he was the source of it, but also in kind of parliamentary language that he was absolutely livid with the Metropolitan Police, because what you don't do if you're detectives is name your sources, and they appear to have named the source. But actually it's even worse than that, because they named the wrong source. The detectives said that it was the Lord Speaker. They'd assumed that because Mandelson was a peer, it would be the Lord Speaker that provided this information. They got confused and named another guy. So the Lord Speaker, Lord Forsyth, is absolutely furious as well, and the Met Police are going to see him today to apologise. And look, I put it to you, to infuriate one speaker is unfortunate, but to infuriate two speakers is quite something else. And it's not a particularly good start to this investigation, I would have thought, and it's worth kind of looking at that more broadly, because obviously this is really sensitive, this case, and it's going to continue to be sensitive for a long time. And Mandelson is clearly very aggrieved as well. We revealed the messages that he had sent to friends after being released on bail, kind of denying that he was a flight risk, saying the whole thing was a complete fiction. And I think the problem for the Met is this is intensely political, and when police investigations enter the political arena, it can get really, really messy, and that is what we've seen already this week.
Steve, we have a little bit of an issue with your sound. We're going to try and persevere. No, it's not your fault. I think it may be the wind. We're going to try and persevere through this just for a moment, because, as you say, it's a really important story, and it's also a very sensitive one. But a lot of people who are looking at this from the outside, and you see this throughout the newspapers today, it's fair to say most newspapers are looking at it in this manner. Some people are questioning whether Peter Mandelson is trying to control the narrative here, whether he is trying to sort of talk up certain elements of this conversation, perhaps at the expense of others.
I mean, that is one claim. I think the message that he sent to his friends got out, and it got out to journalists, including us and other outlets as well, and that then precipitated this idea that he was trying to shape the conversation. I don't believe that was the intention. We picked it up and others picked it up, but it had been circulated quite widely, and that was the message in which he revealed that he had been considered a flight risk, that he was, allegedly planning to go to the British Virgin Islands, something he completely denies. But obviously with Mandelson, people always assume he is trying to control narratives and control events, and that is always going to be kind of part of what happens in these cases, I would have thought, when he's involved.
Let's talk a little bit about policy, because the Times also has reporting this morning about the government's plans to ease the pain of student loans. Kemi Badenoch, the Conservative leader, made this the point of her questions in the House of Commons yesterday. The Prime Minister pretty much sidestepped every single one of them. What have you found out?
Well, it feels inevitable that a climb down is coming. So Keir Starmer yesterday confirmed that the government is looking at making the system fairer. He said this is actually all the Tories' fault. This is the broken system they introduced. And Kemi Badenoch also took, on behalf of her party, a share of the blame yesterday at Prime Minister's questions. But look, there is a kind of political mass. You can feel it growing behind this issue. It wasn't there a month ago, but there is an issue where loads of people who are on what's called Plan 2 loans are facing extraordinary rising costs and extraordinary rising debt that they simply, no matter how much they pay off, it keeps going up and up and up because of the penal interest rates on it. And what's really interesting, Kate, is I'm getting this from Labour MPs, because you've got a lot of younger Labour MPs who are part of what's called the Plan 2 generation, who are carrying around these enormous loans, and they are saying people need to grasp this because it's a massive issue, and ministers who are just a few years older than them are not subject to the Plan 2 loans because they kicked in at 2013. So you've actually got a very political pressure directly on the backbenches. It feels to me like some kind of resolution's coming. Some people are saying it could come as soon as next week. It may come shortly after that, but the government is looking at that. One of the issues they're going to have, though, is whatever they do probably won't be enough. It's one of those things where, okay, if you increase the thresholds at which people start repaying the loans, which are currently frozen for 3 years, that might address some of the concerns of critics. But the issue, people will still say, well, I've still got these enormous loans with penal interest rates. So short of a kind of massive overhaul of the entire structure of the thing at a cost of billions of pounds to the taxpayers, it's quite difficult to see what the government can do to satisfy all parties on this, but there will be some movement on it coming.
And is that the scale of the numbers we're talking about? I mean, you mentioned there that, a huge overhaul would be billions of pounds. Do we have a sense of what the numbers we're talking about are yet?
I am willing to bet the Treasury will not be going there given the constraints on the public finances. And it's also worth flagging that Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor herself, said as recently as 3 weeks ago that the system was fair. That view has now changed in government, and they are going to be making some kind of change. So look, we don't know what the quantum is yet. If I was to bet, and I'm not going to, this is based on slightly informed conversations, but people are talking to me about again raising the threshold in line with inflation, but that doesn't really touch the sides for a lot of people. So it's really tricky for the government on this, but something is coming. We are probably not going to get it at the spring forecast next week on Tuesday. This is this kind of event where Rachel Reeves is going to unveil the new forecast because the government is determined to try to make that as boring as possible.
Yes.
It probably won't be as boring as they think it will be, but we think there's some probably quite bad economic news buried amid the good economic news in there for them. But either way, they are trying to make that not a place where you get new tax and spending policies. So, but it's coming. You can definitely feel it in the air here.
Well, we'll come back to you to ferret out that bad news next week, Steve. Before we let you go, do you have a favourite crisp? Are you a crisp fan?
Do you know what? I've been giving this some thought because your producer kindly mentioned it before I came on air. I would normally say McCoy's, but recently in our household, my 8-year-old daughter has rediscovered for us bacon rashers and brought them into the household. And they're amazing. They're a really good old school crisp. So for this morning, I am going to say bacon rashers.
Aren't they called frazzles? Aren't they called frazzles?
No, they're the ones we have. They just say bacon frazzle on the pack. You can buy them at all good supermarkets. But they're really Moorish. They're the crack cocaine of the crisp world, possibly.
Yeah,
I didn't say that.
They are great. Fully agree with you there, Steve. Thanks very much. That is Steve Swinford with the whole range from the Speaker of the House of Commons to the future of the country's economic situation to crisps.
So are they different to frazzles, or they're the same thing?
I think frazzles are the branded, and then you can get an own brand version,
an even cheaper version of frazzles,
them, which are not called frazzles.
I wonder how close to the pig any of them have got.